Hi, welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Robert Winters.
And I'm Judy Nathans.
And today is
November 1st. Oh, 1 week. Well,
Yeah.
some people, not for everybody, apparently they think a third of Americans will have voted in early voting.
Is that what the estimate is?
I could be wrong. I heard some amazing figure today.
That is, if
Not
that's,
that already, but probably by the end of,
if that's true, that'll be pretty incredible.
That is pretty incredible.
Yeah, actually, I think we actually have some numbers.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
touch it on here about the
Yes.
what the
You have
turnout
been-
was for Cambridge.
Our local mathematician.
I'm going to. No, actually, I'm going to acknowledge the at least one person here. I've
wait.
actually been stealing the numbers from John
Okay.
Hawkinson.
And who is that?
Whoops, that's the wrong way to do this. I think I was supposed to do it that way.
Wait.
Right?
Now you're going to slide it
There
over.
we go.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Who did you steal this from?
John Hawkinson's been grabbing and posting the turnout numbers. I was interested in them, but I wasn't. There was no way I was going to do this on a day-by-day basis.
I was wondering about that. Okay.
Yeah, so I think we did talk about last week how on the very opening day there were 2,240
That was the 24th,
people.
this day, right?
Yeah, and there were actually almost the same number that came out on Saturday.
Yes, well, it would
October
make
29th.
sense because more people have it
Yeah, it
off.
was available. I mean, I was very interested in just seeing how this was going to go because there's issues about, do you really want to do 5 locations? Do you want to do it for 11 full
But
days?
look at Halloween. Now that's interesting. That is the third highest.
Yeah. So it's
That's
part of the
amazing.
reason for
Yeah, why
that,
is
and
that?
also for the other one is that those are the days that were open later in the evening.
Oh, the 31st.
Not exclusively, but certainly
in a lot of places.
a lot of
Okay,
places.
you're right.
So, I mean, Wednesdays are also open late too.
You're right.
So there's a bump up on Wednesdays, but not as much
Yeah.
as on Mondays.
And that's very helpful. You have the remaining dates and times because people
Yeah.
don't realize it's only through Friday.
It's only through
not
Friday,
this weekend, right?
but of course, it's funny because there was all this. The mailings in the city were about early
Yes.
voting, and I was sort of worried that they might actually people think you had. There are some people who might think
you
you're
had to vote
supposed
early, right? Yeah.
So I just want to point out that they
And
haven't.
there's only Wednesday, it's late everywhere. I've
Yeah.
noticed that. So just people, if you want to vote and you can't go till early, just you can go on Wednesday
just
night
However you do it, just vote.
in any place.
So there'll be more numbers today, but it just as of Monday
there's the
evening,
total.
There was over 11,000 people had already
Okay.
voted in Cambridge just in
Wow.
early voting, which is really pretty extraordinary.
And do you know how many voted in the last presidential election in Cambridge? Do you have any?
No,
idea of that?
I have the numbers, but I don't have them with me.
Okay.
The
I think it's 30
I think
something, right?
There's on the order of about 70,000 registered voters. I would expect you're going to get a pretty high percentage
Yeah.
turnout. Sort of. Remember that 70,000, including some inactive
Right.
voters who may have actually moved away.
Right.
So it's kind of not a reliable number.
Right.
I think maybe the actual number of voters is probably closer to 60. I'm guessing.
I seem to remember something in the 30s for the last election.
I think
Does
for
that
the
sound right?
presidential election,
Yeah,
it'll
the
be
presidential.
higher. Yeah.
Oh, really? I don't think it was 40 though.
For the gubernatorial election, I think it's probably like double the municipal, so it's probably
Right,
in the 30s. To 40s.
Do you think the presidential in
It's
2012
probably
was in the 40s?
It
I
could
don't
break
remember
50. I think. I'm not sure. I'm really
don't
not
think
sure.
so.
I've got it on the website.
I know you do.
We could spend the next half hour.
That's true. We could look at
searching,
that. Maybe
right?
in that few minutes in between segments. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, it's pretty impressive.
Yes,
I'm
exciting.
usually a good prognosticator of these things. I wouldn't have expected these numbers to be this high for early
Yeah.
voting. So this is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a person who likes to hypothesize what's going to be
Right.
and then prove me wrong, right?
I wonder which site had the most. That's interesting.
I think the main library.
Isn't that interesting?
And the
Yeah.
let's see, was the main library the main one?
It
I
looks
think?
like that
'Cause
was
yeah,
the
'cause
most.
it was pretty accessible and
I guess.
sort of a
Also, I think
central
they had
location.
later hours, maybe, because they were.
That's
well, maybe
possible,
not. I don't
too.
know.
I'm not sure.
But it is
But
true.
anyway, it's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
interesting to see, and you got to be careful how to read this because
Sure.
what's true
Oh,
for
you
a
have it in the
presidential
order,
election
yeah.
and the intensity associated with the
Absolutely.
presidential election may
Very
not be
different.
the same for the next state election in 2 years,
Right.
which is the next time this would be scheduled to happen in
2
this
years.
manner.
There's a governor election.
I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I think it's
Ooh.
it's every 4 years.
Didn't
so
you just get in? No, maybe.
yeah, a couple of years ago. So
These
yeah.
elections keep happening.
Listen, I like Charlie Vicker. I'm sorry, I do.
I do, except for I think he was not for the gas tax, and he's not going to vote. He's not going to vote for president.
He will. He just
Yeah, well,
what he says.
sure
what
hope
he
his
does, he
wife
knows.
is a smart enough cookie. Who she'll
I've
vote
got
for.
him. He'll probably be one of those Gary Johnson protest vote kind of
Yeah.
votes.
But I didn't realize he was
that.
against the gas tax. And you know what? That would save a whole lot of problems that we're having.
Yeah,
People who voted for a gas tax.
perhaps.
I think so.
So that's one thing. I think actually, since we do have the graphic here, we did
Yeah.
talk about last
Speaking
week
of transportation.
about it. There was a temporary, a trial shift in left turn restrictions in Inman Square. It's going to go into effect November 3rd, which is now
So it
just
has not
2
gone
days
in
from now.
effect yet.
No, I believe it starts November 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, why don't you switch to this graphic?
Yeah, so we'll just
Okay.
take one quick look. We don't want to belabor it too much
Right.
here. But
November 3rd.
this is starting this
Oh, that's
coming
this week.
Thursday.
Yeah.
This November 3rd. So for those of you who passed through
Yeah.
Inman Square, just be advised that if you're cruising down, coming from Somerville along Hampshire Street, you better go straight on Hampshire. You
Are we
can't.
talking about cars or bicycles?
Both, but
Really?
I seriously doubt whether
Interesting.
the cyclists are actually going to pay attention to it.
Yeah, but wouldn't that then affect the drivers if they don't do the same thing?
It would. But, people are going to do what they're going to do. So,
Hmm.
and similarly, if you're coming on Hampshire heading up towards Somerville, you will not be able to bang a left onto Cambridge Street. You'll be able to make a right onto Cambridge Street, but you can't make, bend left that way. And if you're coming down Cambridge Street, you won't be able to bang a left onto Antrim Street anymore, which I think is
That's just as well.
potentially.
That was always hard to do.
Yeah.
But what about if you want to continue? You can continue.
Yeah, so you can always go straight. When you got the green, you can just go straight through any of these streets, right? And you can also cut into Antrim coming down from Somerville on Hampshire, which is something I have to do often. Anyway, that goes into effect this
All right.
Thursday. So
Well, they have a lot of those
just worth
big,
mentioning.
those light LED signs.
I think
hope.
what they're going to do is use the mobile ones.
That's what I meant, yeah.
That have the flag. The ones that right now are actually in place there. Like
Oh.
one of them says,
Oh.
Bicyclists use caution, don't pass
Yes.
trucks on right. Right.
Okay,
Which is,
well, there's one on, right up on Prospect that says that too.
yeah.
Coming
So.
towards Boston.
Right, so I think what you're going to do is you're going to see those on multiple
Okay.
spots on
And
Cambridge and
maybe
Hampshire
they'll even
streets.
have some traffic personnel, police.
Possible, but
I would
that's
think.
it's kind of a hard thing to staff.
But for the first day, maybe
for the
just
first
to
day you
have
see
people
something
do,
like
the whistling cops that could stand on something.
The dancing cops
Yeah,
who will do something like
yeah.
that. Yeah, maybe. So anyway, so that's coming here. So.
Speaking of transportation.
Yeah, well, actually, let's. How about we go through a few of the items
All
that
right.
came up since this is Tuesday, the day after the most recent
Right.
Halloween version of the Cambridge City Council
Which is
meeting.
what most of it was.
Yeah, so there were a number of things of significance that came up at the meeting that maybe are at least worthy of some commentary.
Okay.
There were actually some of the meetings with items that were held over from the previous meeting of 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
Via the charter right, and then they came up on the agenda this time. I always find it interesting. The things that you think are going to be controversial end up just nothing,
Just being
no
passed.
discussion.
Yeah.
And some things you think of as non-controversial, they end up talking for an hour.
Like what?
Well, I didn't think that there was an order from the 17th that having to do with putting restrictions on wood-fired grills in
Oh, right, that became.
restaurants.
Yes.
And I didn't actually know what the real motivation of this was, but I talked to people who were involved in it during the meeting last night. We were sort of camped out over in the Ackerman room.
People
chatting.
involved in it on both sides, or just
People who work as city council aides, actually.
Oh, right. Who wrote up?
Yeah.
Apparently, the city wrote up that language, right?
Yeah. So anyway, the basic idea is this: is that there was an order that you could interpret or not. Basically, seemed to be suggesting that the city council wanted to ban
Right.
wood-fired
And-
grills at restaurants citywide.
Commercial establishments.
Commercial only. You
Right.
can't really ban wood fire stoves in residential.
That wasn't even the issue.
Right.
which is
So
sort of
Councilor
came up
Toomey
later.
did bring it
Yeah.
up as sort of an issue. Even though, I think many
Right.
of us actually notice when people do have these,
Yeah.
kind of nice little wood stoves, you will smell,
Right.
the burning wood in the city, and there's probably particulates. And
Right.
I think Councilor Toomey correctly pointed out there are no scrubbers required when you're doing it at your home,
Right.
right? But it's not really usually an issue unless
Right.
you happen to have your fireplace venting out onto a roof right below a neighbor's house or kitchen window
low,
or something.
Right, it's when you're in a low first floor, second floor.
So apparently, and there was word, I kind of saw this earlier from some of the business representatives. I'm on some mailing lists, and people say, yeah, you got to go out there and speak out against this.
Oh.
So because there are some places on East Cambridge and elsewhere.
They're all over.
They
just
definitely
haven't been complaints because of where they're located, I think.
Right, and some places it's only one part of what they do at the restaurant.
Right.
Okay, but there's one particular place in the old Chez Henri.
Right, which is right, a very
Shepherd and
residential
Mass
area.
Ave.
It's a first floor restaurant.
Yep. So they
Very residential
and
area.
they're pretty much exclusively wood-fired.
But it hadn't been until it was new ownership. It's not the Chez Henri, it's called the Shepherd Restaurant.
Now it's called the Shepherd, but it was closed for a while.
Right, but they never had, I think, a wood firing.
Chez Henri had beer, and
Right,
we used
but
to
I'm
go
just
there for
saying
beers.
it changed. It
wasn't
became,
wood-fired beer.
There is such a thing, I think.
Really?
I don't know. So anyway, this restaurant, I guess they've been there over a year. I don't know.
Yeah, and it was interesting, the testimony, because yes, there are some neighbors who are
Directly
irate
affected.
because even though they put in scrubbers to remove the particulate matter,
Right.
you could still smell the wood
And
smoke.
there's something also about noise. But it was
Is that
more-
right?
Yes, but it was more about, I think, the smell and the smoke but then you had a couple neighbors, I was writing down where they lived who did not complain about it.
Actually, so there was one woman came up, a young Chinese woman who spoke incredibly eloquently of this is the hearth of the neighborhood. We were actually commenting on what an incredibly well-spoken speech she gave. I was even saying, well, somebody should run for city council.
Did she live right near there?
She lived really nearby, and it really is sort of become a neighborhood gathering place. So they didn't want to see it, jeopardized by putting unnecessary restrictions. So I think it's an issue. It's a real issue.
Well, also, and as someone pointed out, they can't just make an ordinance for one establishment. They have to really think about how that's going to affect everything, and is it a zoning? So it is complicated.
You could if you wrote an ordinance or changed it to zoning or did something in such a way that it basically said that such a use is permissible, but not within X number of feet of a residential building.
Right. So
then it would be a citywide ordinance.
Right.
And then you either met the criteria or not.
Right. But I think they do need to do some research because they need to figure out how many restaurants are we talking about in Cambridge to begin with. And there have not been any complaints up until now.
That's right.
So
So anyway, it was something, but it definitely consumed a lot of time at the meeting. That's why we were commenting on it.
Yeah.
It's anyway, it was kind of interesting in that regard. I believe in the end
Didn't they add some amendments to it?
Mayor Simmons said, "I will not support it as written because
several people didn't.
Yeah, it seemed to suggest a ban, and I think Councilor Devereux, who's one of the authors, said, "No, it says and or."
Right.
But
But didn't they have some amendment that Toomey wanted about looking into the research on wood burning stoves in houses?
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling that he was just sort of throwing a stick in there just to kind of grind the gears.
He didn't like the whole thing because it affects, especially in where his district. A lot of restaurants.
Yeah. So I think this needs to be worked out. Obviously. Listen, I have situations where I'll have neighbors who make noise and they keep you, they drive you crazy.
Right.
So, I want to know that there are rules.
You can't respond to every, but you have to have some frameworks, and I guess.
Yeah, you just need to have the laws written out well.
But they actually haven't had a hearing on it. They've had public comment on it, right?
Right. Councilor Carlone actually pointed, it's funny because I was in the side room, I was saying, the reason why zoning laws were originally drafted was because when you didn't want to have disparate uses in proximity, like a kindergarten next to a pork rending. And that's why you created zoning laws.
Oh, to have this is where business district, this is, okay.
And Councilor Carlone came back and pretty much said exactly that later on, and he said
but some things were just grandfathered in.
Right,
sort of,
that's right. That's right. So, but if you had things like smokestack industries right next to an elementary school or something, it would be a problem. So that's why zoning was created. So
so it's basically changing the.
My feeling is Cambridge abuses zoning. It tries to use it to prescribe
like
everything.
A heavy hammer.
Thou shalt not have this. Thou shalt have this everywhere.
Yeah.
I've seen some really fabulous examples. about it. But one, I remember just being on the Central Square Advisory Committee, we had to say, well, do we agree that a dentist's office should be allowed a variance to operate in Central Square? And I said, are you jiving me? You mean you can't open a dentist's office in Central Square because it's a violation of the use tables in the zoning code? Well, they got the variance, but the thing is that
why was it a violation?
Because it was not on the table of uses in that commercial zone.
Can you amend the table of uses?
You can, and honestly, they're moving in that direction right now, is to do a kind of a major scale.
Is that part of the Envision Cambridge, or is that a totally separate?
I think Envision Cambridge will come to that, but I'm a little worried because I'm on the Envision Cambridge Advisory Committee, and we got our last meeting canceled. We have another one maybe.
I just feel. I mean, how does that equate with the master plan? Or is that
it is. It is.
Is the master plan?
Well, it's the process that allegedly will lead to a master plan.
We spend a lot of money on consultants.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether this is a little sort of stuck in the mud.
Hire a consultant. Hire a consultant. $5 million here, $1 million here.
Yeah. Now there's another item, again, not to dwell too much on sort of the old business here, but there was an item. That's right. One of the charter right items had to do with city council stand in opposition to putting any kind of path out of the alewife area.
Right.
Well, it turns out what they're really concerned about was where the new housing development is right into Belmont.
Yeah.
Where right now, when people actually move in, when the project is completed, if they want to go to the alewife station, they'll have to walk along the road because there's no sidewalk out there. So there was some proposal to put in some kind of pathway. Now, of course, if you're a defender of the Silver Maple Forest, you have some concern that they're going to cut a pathway through the wooded area as opposed to more like a sidewalk alongside the road. So I agree with that. But the way the dang thing is written makes it say that anything west of Alewife, we will oppose any walkway. And I think I mentioned last week that it would really be nice if they put a little bridge over the little river somewhere along that, not that far out maybe, but somewhere along there to kind of make a really nice walking loop.
I didn't follow. There was testimony by Ellen Moss, who's a friend. Now, did you follow that? Because I know she showed a painting of someone that recently died. Yeah. That painted the silver. So was she in support or not support?
She's very much supportive because she's sort of the self-appointed defender of the Silver Maple Forest and its environs. So
keep it as it is. Keep it
so
wild.
she just don't touch it. So now, if it's a matter of because I've gone out there. First off, it wouldn't be easy to do that because the land actually falls away when you leave the road. So running a path down it.
Who would want to go there?
I don't think you'd want to do that.
No,
So I don't know. This might be just sort of an overreaction to the fact that some path needs to be built. But ultimately, I think it'll probably be more like a sidewalk. So anyway, but it was that what came on. Now, one thing I was kind of entertained by, I must admit, in my devilish way, it was the gas pumps. There was an order some time ago, I forget, having to do with labeling gas pumps, saying, driving cars and this is going to add to global warming. And I thought, well, this seems a little silly. I mean, I think Craig Kelly pretty much said as much.
Well, he said. Well, what's interesting, it went back and forth between him basically and Jan Devereaux, and she said, there aren't that many. I think there's about 50 gas, and then he says, well, that's my point, is that they're dwindling. So why are we even doing this? And I personally, I don't know. Is it as easy as just doing a sticker and putting it on, or do you have to get state?
I don't know really, but I just thought it was sort of a triviality to be worrying about that. Also,
do you know what? I emailed back Craig Kelly. I said, when I'm getting gas, I'm in my seat. The gas pump's over here. Unless I put my glasses on and peer out the window, I'm not reading anything on that gas pump.
If you ask me what's on the gas pump,
now maybe on a self-help one. The self-help ones, you have to go right up to the gas pump.
I know, and I do that, but I don't ever read any labels.
So, if it's as trivial as Jen said, in terms of cost and doing it, maybe. But I just feel like, and then she said something, but I think it was reference to other things on the agenda about not having enough. Maybe we need to hire more staff because of all these things. And I hate to say it.
I thought that was an overstatement. But I
hate to say it. You know what I was thinking? And I'll tell. I'm bad. People are not going to like me. But I said, well, maybe we should cut some of the salaries of the city councilors and all their expensive aides and pay. No, not the stickers, but maybe pay for some more real city staff that have to do all this research. because
Right.
they keep generating all this stuff.
Yeah, well, the law department
I do
basically
think
said you can
they're
do
all
it if you
overpaid.
want.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
do.
No, I don't disagree.
Cambridge.
Right,
and
but it was interesting watching the dynamics where
Yeah.
Craig Kelly, who's very
Yeah.
much a pro-environment guy, he's sort of saying
is.
this is sort of pointless,
Yeah.
and Jan Dever on the other side, Councilor Dever,
Yeah.
was saying this is an existential issue, like it was a life and death matter. I thought, well, maybe
she's
it's
very
not.
consistent. She's very into the environment. She's and I
know,
appreciate all that, but I
Well,
just feel like this.
She's a bit of an
you
absolutist.
can't-
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I have about some things.
Yeah.
As many people.
So anyway, that was another thing here. There's a few miscellaneous.
Well, the bicycles generate a lot of public comment.
and we'll certainly want to talk a little bit more
Yeah.
about that.
Maybe
but
more, yeah.
there were multiple things having to do with Harvard Square,
Oh, the kiosk. That was
both
the other
new
thing.
and old.
Yeah.
Actually,
Check
mainly
your
new.
kiosk.
So there was
Yeah.
one. We're inviting the owners of the building that
Curious
Equity
George.
One, where the Curious George is
Well,
basically
that's not the
getting
kiosk. That's
booted
a
out.
separate issue. Yeah.
Right, but the thing is, people are kind of melding these together in curious, not so Georgish ways.
I'm not sure they're even aware that we own the kiosk.
We do.
No, but I think a lot of the people are equating
Yeah.
that all these developers coming in are going to change things.
Yeah,
And they will in
so there
some
was a
parts, but-
petition from some who actually is going to be at the Historical Commission, I believe, this Thursday
Oh,
to talk
right.
about landmarking the kiosk. And I said,
Right.
okay, now the truth is that the entire area right there is on the National Registry.
When you
which
say the entire area, you define that for me.
basically
please.
where the plaza is, where
Yeah.
the kiosk is.
Okay.
So the kiosk is.
define boundary the street
Yeah,
on
I
the
think
side.
right. So the kiosk
Okay.
as part of it is part of the National Registry, and Charlie
Okay.
Sullivan from the Historical Commission pointed this out because it was put on the registry when the MBTA was developing plans to eradicate it back in the I guess it was late 70s. It was actually done in the early 80s where they dug up the entire area.
So it was put on the registry, but it was allowed to sell newspapers and magazines?
Well, it's on the National Registry. The thing
okay.
is how it's used is
I
not
see.
the issue. In
I
fact,
see.
landmarking
Okay.
doesn't affect how it's used
Was
either.
that ever an issue back then? I don't know. Were
Well, I mean,
people
it was
not
the-
wanting it to be a magazine place?
I don't really remember, but I do know that by
Remember
putting it on
Sheldon
Sheldon Cohn ran
That's
the
right.
Out of Town News.
That's right.
So, and I remember actually one
Yeah.
prominent activist in North Cambridge who was very upset at the sweetheart deal that Sheldon
Oh,
Cohn got because of
remember
his
that,
supposed political connections. So I found it kind of funny when that same individual
Yeah.
last month was coming out saying, "How dare they try and evict this going concern of out of town
Okay, all
news?"
right. Later on, you can tell me
Right.
who it was. We don't want to name.
Right, we don't want to name
out
names on
people
that.
here.
Yeah,
All right.
but anyway, so this is kind of interesting. So the kiosk is on. Let me just be clear. The kiosk is on the National Registry, so it ain't going nowhere.
Right.
And there's zero people had any plans for getting rid of it.
Right.
The only issue is
Yeah.
what are they going to do with
use of it.
The change of
Okay,
use. Now, there's
right.
some design issues. Some people don't like it's going to look too glitzy or whatever, but they're basically making it more transparent like it was when it was originally built.
Well, you can't change the design too much if it's historical.
No, and it won't. But the thing is that when you take out the book racks and the magazine
Oh,
racks
yeah,
from Out of Town
right.
News, and you put
More
all
the
those-
internal space they actually can
where they've got
work
the
with.
T-shirts and
Right,
tourist
it's the facade that
you know,
they can't
when all
really
that's
touch.
pulled away and the glass is revealed, it'll be much more open looking.
Right.
So anyway, it'll likely get landmarked on the top of being on the National Registry. So I just referred to that as double landmarking.
It just should not become so open that you have people that are homeless sleeping there at night. That's the problem. If,
No, no,
if there's no real use, I think that's why a commercial use would
I
help.
don't. I think
little bit?
something of a
something that's at least more
of a mild
controlled,
commercial use.
yeah.
I mean, as I've said previously here,
Right, hot dog
I think
stand.
something like
I know.
morally like a hot dog stand
We
would
don't
be
have a
something
good hot
way
dog
to go.
stand. Listen up.
Yeah, yeah.
Spikes.
Now, actually, one other thing I might as well mention here in the during this first half hour, there was another matter that was on there having. There were recent hearings, the neighborhood long-term planning and blah blah blah
can't
committee
pronounce it,
about
yeah.
the Foundry building.
Oh, right.
Now, the Foundry building, the city council voted,
We also own that.
and we
Yes,
own it. It was
let's-
given to
yeah.
us by Alexandria
Right.
Real Estate, and it was a big process. The Cambridge Redevelopment Authority was given some authority
Right.
in
finding a-
making
yeah.
something happen and putting out bids to bring somebody in to
Yes.
actually operate this and do that. And nobody was interested because the constraints were so strong that it was very hard to get bids. But they did get a bid. And it was from a company that actually involves at least one person I know who's pretty credible and
Yeah.
helpful and community oriented. But so anyway, in the end, there are some objections that at least some city councilors have. So basically, even though the whole matter got sort of put, there was a whole process, whatever, there was an
And
order.
it's ongoing, it's not finished.
That's right.
Right.
So this order basically called for, maybe I'm overstating this a little bit, but essentially putting the whole thing out to bid, restarting the
redoing the process?
changing this, demanding that in fact the city now start funneling a few more $1 million per year as sort of on an ongoing basis into making this more like what allegedly the city council wanted.
A
Now,
community space rather than a well.
Exactly. So
Wow.
In my.
Where did that go? What happened? I don't remember. I don't think I was paying attention.
Not 100%. I
answering the
think what
door.
happened was there was a charter right exercise by Councilor Toomey.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so basically it'll come up at the next meeting.
So keep pushing it down the road.
Yeah,
Kind of.
but ultimately currently it's not really in the hands of the city council, except for the
Right.
fact that ultimately they do have to sign off on a contract, I think. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Sure. Okay.
So anyway, there's now an effort because at least one city councilor, this is not the vision he had. So
Yeah.
therefore you guys are supposed to restart it. And now the way I'm looking at this, and again, somebody's going to shoot me for this, but this is micromanagement of the worst kind, know? So there's a reason why you have a city manager form of government. If if you want to say, listen, we're not happy with this, so we're going to express ourselves, that's fine. But saying, we're demanding you, Mr. Manager, must rebid this and you must do that. And I just think that's micromanagement. So
Well, what is...
we get 9 seconds.
What's deciding on awnings on buildings? Isn't that
I don't know.
micromanage? Why do we do that?
Anyway, we'll be back in 3 whole minutes. See you then.
Bye.